in this hour, okay, without getting it stretched further. So look at the first question. Identify the complex sentences among the following. Okay, so because we are talking about complex sentences, let's begin by asking you what you understand by complex sentences. What makes a sentence complex? What makes a sentence complex? You can unmute yourself and answer. Yeah, nobody? Don't know what complex sentences or what, or rather what makes a sentence complex? Are you all still with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So no comments on what a complex sentence is. And
It is more
I'm asking
than
you. Yeah, yes, go ahead.
a sentence that has more than one clause.
A sentence that has more than one clause. So look at a sentence like this. Um, I am going to the market and my friend is going to the college. So is this complex sentence? This has more than one clause, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right, Krishna. So
One independent sentence should be there.
right, there should be one main clause or independent clause, and more than that, there should be at least one dependent clause, right? Or what you refer to subordinate clause. So if and only if you have at least one subordinate clause, can you call a sentence a complex sentence, right? Yeah, that is true. Yeah, GK, you're right, and Shresha, you're also right. And Amit, not just simply having clauses will not make it a complex sentence, right? So one of it has to be a dependent clause, right?
Okay, ma'am.
So yeah, that's a good definition to begin with. Now, what we are going to look at is the details of what goes into this dependent clause, what kind of dependent clauses we have, and how do we decide on their grammaticality is what we'll discuss. Okay. Now let's look at those sentences. We have five in the first part of the question. So I know what she wants. She goes to the market. The idea that we should register for the conference is good. Rakesh and Deepa would visit their friend in me. And I wish that, or I wish they could come and stay with us. We have five of them. What about the first sentence? Is that a competence? I know what she wants. I know what she wants. So what is the subject of the sentence? What is the subject in the sentence? You must unmute yourself and speak, okay?
I.
I, yeah, and the sentence, sorry, the verb?
No.
No, right? And what follows no? What she wants. So what is it she wants then? Yeah, okay. What he wants would be the object of the verb no, right? I think we discussed this already while we were discussing subordinate clauses, right in the beginning. I think the first sessions that we for English to in November, this is what we have discussed. I distinctly remember telling this to you. If you have forgotten, just brush up your memory or your conceptual knowledge. Here, what she was is the object of the verb know, right? And is that a simple object? Is this like a one word object like I know her? or I know him. No, right? This is complex in nature in the sense that it has it's a phrase now, right? So it's a clause in itself. In this particular sentence, this is a clause. I know what she wants. Now, this is the first part of what you see on the top in the title there. Question clauses, right? I know what she wants. So what she wants is the object of the verb know, and what she wants is also what? It's a question clause, right? It looks like a question clause. Now, is this a question? But we have the question clause, what she wants, but is the sentence itself a question? Is it an interrogative sentence? No, right? It is not an interrogative sentence. It's still a simple sentence, a declarative sentence, which has a question clause as the object of its verb, right? So this is a complex sentence. This in no way can be considered a simple sentence. It is. Now, if you have heard those lectures carefully, one point that was made is a complex sentence is basically a simple sentence because you're not changing the structure or anything. It looks like the structure is very similar to that of the basic structure is very similar to a simple sentence, right? So you have a subject and you have a verb, and depending on the nature of the verb, whether transitive or intransitive, you have an object, right? So it follows the SVO. But Prince here is in the complex sentence, what happens? Your object. Now keep this in mind. It is more about the when you refer to a sentence as complex sentence, we are referring more to the object part of the sentence than not the object part, right? Subject has got nothing to do here. If the object is complex in nature, if it is not a single word, a simple word, you see in a sentence like I know her or I know him, if it is a clause, it is a phrase, if it is expanded, then you can call it a complex sentence, right? So remember this, complexity or complex sentence is entirely based on the nature of the object that you, the nature of the predicate that you have, right? And within the predicate, the object. If the object is a clause, then you call it a complex sentence. This is what makes the sentence a complex sentence. But otherwise, the basic structure of the complex sentence too resembles the one of the simple sentence, which is it has a subject, it has a verb, and it has an object. Okay, right. Now the second one, she goes to the market. Is that a complex sentence? She goes to the market.
No, no, ma'am.
No,
No, no.
this is not a complex sentence. This is a simple sentence. She goes to the market, right? Now the third one, the idea that we should register for the conference is good. What do you think about this sentence? The idea that we should register for the conference is good. Is that a complex sentence?
Complex, ma'am.
Why is it a complex sentence? What makes you think that this is a complex sentence? Okay.
Like the idea that
Okay.
is part. Yeah.
So you think, so this is a complex subject. So you think it makes the sentence a complex sentence too. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So keep this in mind. This is, I've included sentence particularly because I wanted you to say this difference. Remember in the first sentence itself, I told you that you decide whether a sentence is complex or not based on what you see in its object position. Okay. So the complexity in subject has got nothing to do with the complexity of sentence. Okay. So no matter how complex your subject is, this sentence, the idea that we should read the conference is good, is a simple sentence. Okay. If the object had a clause, the object had something as complex as what you see in the subject or position, then this would have become a complex sentence, right? Even otherwise, okay, even if you do not look at the subject and object per se, think about it from the point of view of an independent clause and a dependent clause. Do you see any dependent clause in this sentence?
No, ma'am.
Right. So that means this is not a common sense, right? So keep this in mind. Whenever you are looking for a complex sentence, the sentence derives its complexity, or the sentence is made complex only if your object has a clause. Okay, so everything is about the object. No matter how complicated your subject looks, it cannot contribute to making a sentence complex. All right. Okay, so this is one thing. Grammatically, I mean. Okay, it could. I mean, for a lot of you, it might look semantically a bit jarring or a bit complicated to have such a long subject and all that, but that is different. Okay, so grammar in certain terms is independent of what you derive the meaning from this sentence. Okay? So grammatically, you call something a complex sentence only if your object has a clause, okay, not the subject. Now, then if the case, look at the fourth one. Rakesh and Deepa would visit their friend in the evening. Is this a complex sentence?
Like a simple sentence.
This is simple, right? So what you have a coordinated, this is not a coordinated sentence, but you have a compound subject here. Right? So if I break this sentence open, I will get Rakesh would visit his friend in the evening. Deepa would visit his friend in the evening. I can only write it as Rakesh would visit his friend in the evening and Deepa would visit her friend in the evening. But since both of them are referring to the same person, I put it together using the compound word and, right? So although your subject here is Rakesh and Deepa, which looks like a complex subject, a compound subject, we understand that this would still be a simple sentence, right? Because the object is without any clause, right? Only if the object takes the clause can you call it a complex sentence, okay? Now, the last one, I wish they could come and stay with us, or I wish they would, sorry, they could come and stay with us. How about this? Is that a complex sentence? Should be easier by now to understand. If you have understood the basic one main point, then it should be very difficult to now identify.
Complex.
It's a complex sentence.
This one is complex, right? Because see, your object is complex here. This has a that clause, or even without the, even if you take out the that, you should still have a clause that occupies the place of the object, right? Right. So, is that clear to you? The basic point about how you decide on whether something is complex, whether a given sentence is complex or not.
Yes.
Right? Clear? What do you look at? You look at object position, right? Not the subject. Subject can be complex or compound, but that doesn't affect our judgment of what is a complex sentence. It's only the object that helps you do that. Okay. All right. So now we'll move on to the second part of the question. Now you make judgments on. You have about, I have I think 24 sentences with me, and these are very simple sentences, everyday sentences, daily sentences. All you have to do is to judge whether they are grammatical or not, and if not, then why. Okay, or if yes, then why. Both. Look at the first sentence. I would like to know what he likes to study. I would like to know what he likes to study. Remember, we are looking at embedded sentences too, right? So you should understand what embedding means. Embedding simply means this, you put another clause within the main clause, which is essentially a complex sentence. That process is called embedding, and whatever is placed within the main clause is called an embedded sentence, right? Or a subordinate clause, or a dependent clause. Okay? Any of these things would go, right? So the first sentence, I would like to know what he likes to study. What is the, we'll look at the grammaticality later, or maybe we'll look at the grammaticality first and then see what is happening in that sentence. So is that grammatical? The first sentence, I would like to know what he likes to study. Is that difficult? I would like to know what he likes to study.
I think it's grammatically correct.
It's grammatically correct. So see, whenever you are asked to make a judgment on grammaticality, the first step should be to look at the sentence structure and see where you have your subject, where you have your verb, and happens in the object, right? So look at the sentence, what you have. I would like to know what he likes to study. Now, this is a complex sentence because it has clauses and there are, as I see here, you have more than one embedding. So there is, within the embedded sentence, there is another embedded sentence, right? You see that? Can you pick that out for me? What is the first one? The major one, and then there's another one within that.
I would like to know.
I would like to know. The first one is I would like to know what he likes to study, right? So, object of the verb like, the whole part, to know what he likes to study, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, if I ask the question, what does he like? Then the answer is to know what he likes to study, right? So, to know what he likes to study, your first part. Then within that you have another one, what he likes to study, which is your question clause. Remember, we discussed it in the sentence in the previous exercise. I know what she wants. So this what he likes to study resembles very much the what she wants segment in the first sentence. So the first embedding is to know what he likes to study, and within that again you have what he likes to study as a second embedding, right? If you remember, the lecture mentions about this, that this process in language, this is a very special feature of the language. Anybody remembers what that was called? Anybody, if you can brush up what you have heard in the lecture. I know this is from which week? I think quite time back, right? Maybe 7th or 8th. Don't exactly remember which movie, but there's a specific term that is used for this. Remember? Of course, embedding, but you know that this process is allowed in the language. You can make an infinitely long sentence. You can keep on adding and embedding more things into this.
Matrix.
Yeah, matrix is where you place it. This process is called recursion. Okay, and this is a very distinct feature of the human language, the languages that we speak, natural language, recursion. Right? You can go on adding more clauses and phrases to it and have an infinitively longer sentence. We do not know which is the. If somebody asks you what is the longest sentence possible, you don't know because it is infinite. You can keep on adding things as much as you want. This feature is very distinct feature of the natural language called recursion. Okay. Okay, so just to mention, thing that was I know it was not discussed in detail, it was mentioned, but not very difficult to understand, right? This is the quality to version refers to the feature or the ability of the natural language to add or to make it infinitely longer. Means the ability to add as many clauses or phrases as it wants to sentence, right? Okay, so I would like to know what he likes to study is a grammatical sentence. There's nothing wrong in that. And we also looked at the embedding. Now, I wonder where I left my jacket. I wonder where I left my jacket. Now, this is again an example of a question clause, right? While you look at these sentences, also pay attention to the kind of verbs that are used. It's clauses, right? Words like, like, wonder, wish. I think this is also referred to in the lecture that there are very certain special verbs in English which would take a question clause, right? So as you look through these sentences, please make sure that you're also paying attention to the kind of verbs that receive them. So I wonder where I left my jacket. Where I left my jacket is again a question clause. And wonder is a verb which would take a question clause as complement, object complement, right? So grammatical or ungrammatical?
Ungrammatical.
Grammatical, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, would you tell me if Sheetal would attend the meeting? Would you tell me if Sheetal would attend the meeting?
Grammatical.
It's grammatical. What is the embedded sentence?
If Sheetal would attend the meeting.
Correct. If Sheetal would attend the meeting. Right. Now, What do you wear for the evening? What do you wear for the evening? Rather, those also fine, but if you want, maybe we can change it to what will you wear for the evening? Grammatical?
Grammatical.
This is a, yeah, this is a plain interrogative sentence, right? What will you wear for the evening? Yes, grammatical. Now, the fifth one. I asked, what did you wear for the evening? I asked, what did you wear for the evening?
It's ungrammatical, I guess.
You have three sentences there. I asked, what did you wear for the evening? I asked, what you wore for the evening. I asked, what did you wear for the evening? Is the first one grammatical or the second one grammatical? Somebody in the chat. What is seven is ungrammatical, correct? That is obvious, right? Seventh one has to be ungrammatical because you have double past use. You have both did and then wore. That cannot be done in English, right? So two past forms cannot go together. So and there are people who tell me 5 and 6 are grammatical. 5 and 6 are not grammatical. Only one among that is grammatical. Okay. Which one is that? The sixth one is grammatical. Okay. I asked what you wore for the evening. Okay, that is the correct one. Fifth one is not grammatical. It's a very common mistake in one of the common mistakes that you see in English. What did you wear? I asked what did you wear for the evening is the wrong construction. Okay, the correct construction would be I asked what you wore for the evening. Right? You can write what did you wear for the evening only if it is a direct question. Okay, which means you have to put them in inverted commas. If you are reporting it, if your question is an indirect one, then I asked what did you wear for the evening is wrong. Okay, the correct answer would be I asked what you wore for the evening. Okay, get this difference? Yeah, all right. Okay, keep that in mind. Please make sure that you don't commit this. These are simple things, but grammaticality has to be maintained on all of that. What did you want? Eighth one. What did you want? What did you want? Is that grammatical? Why is it ungrammatical? What do you think is ungrammatical here?
It is grammatical.
What do you what do you want?
What do you want is present tense. What did you want is referring to something that has happened in the past. No, maybe said the person asked something in the past. So then obviously the question is what did you want? Right.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, right.
Right. So it's grammatical. The sentence is grammatical. Okay. Correct. Yes, Badrish, right. Grammatical. Then ninth is I know what you wanted. I know what you wanted. So again, look at those verbs. Wonder, like, ask, know. I know what you wanted. That is grammatical? Yes. I know what you wanted is grammatical, right? How about 10? I know what did you want. Now this is similar to the one which we already discussed. I know what did you want. This is ungrammatical, right? Yeah, correct. Because again, direct question and this sort of formulation is not allowed there. Okay, right. The 11th one. I don't know whether Rita will come. I don't know whether Rita will come. Yes, then it is ungrammatical. All of you are right. 7th one. I don't know whether Rita will come. Again, pay attention to the verb know. Whether Rita will come. Looks like a grammatical sentence, right? Yeah, it is grammatical. So we were looking at the question clauses till now. Okay, now we have slightly transcended to the if and whethers. Okay, just to show you the demarcation. I do not know if Sanju is coming. I do not know if Sanju is coming. This is grammatical again. Okay, no problem. So your if Sanju is coming is your clause, right? The clause part here. And the previous sentence it was whether Rita will come. Both of them grammatical. Now the 13th one. I cannot decide whether I should buy this phone. I cannot decide whether I should buy this phone. Grammatical, ungrammatical. It's like a grammatical sentence. It's also okay. Fine. Yeah. So whether I should buy this phone is your clause part, okay, which occupies the object position of the transverb this side, right? So grammatical, no problem. 14th. I am not sure if to get a new car.
Ma'am, in the previous one, can we say like this? I couldn't decide whether I should buy this phone like that, or is it wrong?
Yes, yeah. You're not making much change besides the fact that you're changing cannot to could not, right? You made it a
Yeah.
little more polite. That's all.
Okay.
You basically converted that into a formal sentence. That is okay. That's correct. That doesn't affect the grammaticality. Yeah, 14th one. I am not sure if to get a new car. I am not sure if to get a new car. Hmm.
So it seems correct.
Seems correct. Okay. It shouldn't seem correct. It should be either correct or incorrect. Okay, to have reason for that. Okay. Okay. So people who are saying incorrect, do you think it is incorrect? I'm not sure if to get a new car, why it is incorrect, but you should know why it is incorrect, right? Because there are people who are saying it is correct also. So people who think it is correct, it would be nice if you can tell us why you think it is incorrect. Intuition is fine, like if you're able to decide this intuitively that this is incorrect, then that's good. But it's always we are studying these things closely, so it is better that we know the reason for that as well. That's what descriptive grammar should do to you. Okay, so the sentence is incorrect because see, if cannot be used uh, if your clause is an infinitive clause. Okay, if it is not a finite clause, then you cannot use if. Okay, this is a speciality with the complementizers. So this also you're familiar, no? If, at, whether, question words, all of them are referred to as complementizers. So you don't remember this word, but the point here is that between if and whether, there are specific cases where you cannot use if and where you cannot whether. This is one such case. If your clause in the object position is an infinitive clause, okay, as in a non-finite clause. What do we mean by a non-finite clause? What do you mean by a non-finite clause? A non-finite clause is a clause which does not have tense. Okay, if your clause or verb in your clause does not have a tense, then it is referred to as a non-finite clause. Okay, so in this case, this is your clause of if to get a new car. So look at that, to get a new car. You have an infinitive there, to get, right? This is this is non-finite clause. This does not have a tense. So in such cases, you cannot use if. Okay, if can only use with finite clauses. Here, since your clause is infinite, you cannot use non-finite. You cannot use if. So the right answer would be, I am not sure whether to get a new car. Okay. Understand this, Shrestha. If whether was used instead of, I think, yeah. Yes, 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 yes. That's right. Of course, if it is not if, then we'll have to use whether there, right? That's the nature of the predicate. But the reason is that why do you use whether? Because whether can be used with non-finite clauses if cannot be used without a non-finite clause. Okay. Are these 2 points clear that if cannot be used with non-finite clause? The first point. Second is what is a non-finite clause? Those are clauses which does not have a tense. Okay. Clear? Yes, no. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
Okay. Fine. So let's go to the next one. There are confusions about the jury would rule in his favor. There are confusions about if the jury would rule in his favor.
Grammatical.
Grammatical? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Hmm. Let's see. It is grammatical. Okay. With a differing opinion on this. Okay. This is also something that you should know that whenever you have a preposition. Okay, so look at the sentence. There are confusions about is a preposition, right? So whenever you have a preposition preceding the clause, you need to use whether instead of if. Okay, yeah, there are confusions about whether the jury would rule in his favor. Okay, if is restricted to certain usages, and this is again one such usage. If you have a preposition preceding it, then it has to be followed with whether and not if. So this sentence is also ungrammatical. There are confusions about whether the jury would rule in his favor is the right answer. Okay, not if the jury would rule in his favor. Okay. These are details. Uh-huh. Yeah, looks better. Shrestha, looks better, sounds better. Intuitions again, it's good. It's really, it's good that if you can make these judgments intuitively. But for a lot of us, if we are not able to do that, then the only solace are the rules, right? And the rule is this: that if you have a preposition preceding the clause, then the complementizer to be used is whether, not if. If cannot be used in this situation. Okay. So this sentence is ungrammatical. You'll have to write it as there are confusions about whether the jury would in his favor, not if. Okay. All right. Is that understood, guys? So we have looked at two conditions of not using if, right? If cannot use, if your clause is infinite or non-finite, that is without a tense, and you cannot use if also is if the clause is preceded by a preposition, right? In both the cases, if is ruled out, you'll have to use whether, right? Okay. Now the next one, the problem is if or not, we can submit the proposals today. The problem is, if or not, we can submit the proposal today. Now, this is a straightforward case. This is one of the usage. This is ungrammatical because this sentence is also ungrammatical. The problem is if or not, we can submit because this coinage or not is followed whether. Okay, if or not is a bad construction. Okay, whether or not is the correct construction in English. So whenever you have this or not sort of construction in tense, then it needs to be preceded by the whether complementizer. Okay, the complementary whether. So the problem is whether or not we can submit the proposal to it. Not the problem is if or not. So three conditions you have now with respect to the usage of if complementizer. It cannot be used if it's if the clause is infinite or non-finite in nature, cannot be used if the clause is preceded by a preposition, cannot be used if the clause contains an or not construction. Okay, So in all these three cases, if is ruled out, and you will have to take whether. Are you following what I'm saying? Is make a note of these things, because you will get questions in exams on this. You will be asked to judge the grammaticality of the sentence, right? So don't make this mistake. Whether would suit better? Suit better, yes, true. Reasons need to be specified, right? Suits better looks like a very, I mean, if I say it suits better, so use whether. When I'm taking a class, it sounds very lazy. So take the reasons also. Okay. It is unclear. Now, this is 71 that we're discussing. It is unclear whether the chief guest would reach on time or not. It is unclear whether the chief guest would reach on time or not. Grammatical, ungrammatical? This is grammatical, right? This is grammatical. Now, what have we done here? We still have the or not construction, but the or not is located far away from that complementizer, right? It appears at the end of the sentence. So if there is a distance, if there's a good distance between them, by which I mean, if you're pushing or not to the end of the sentence, then you can either use whether or you can use if also. Like look at the 18th sentence. It is not clear if the president's cavalcade would cross the street or not. Right? In both the cases, what you did is you pushed or not to the end of the sentence, and in that case, you basically separated it out from the complementizer. In that case, what has happened? You can either use whether or if. Both are correct. So if I rewrite this as it is unclear if the chief guest would reach on time or not, it is still correct. Okay, or the 18th sentence, it is not clear whether the president's cavalcade would cross the street or not. Both are correct. Okay, so we can use both if and whether in such cases where or not is shifted towards the end of the sentence. Now, what is the difference? But still there is a difference, right? When you use whether, you make it sound more formal. So when I say it is unclear whether the chief guest would reach on time or not, I'm trying to make it formal, right? When I say the president's cavalcade would cross the street or not, it is very informal. So to convert this into a formal sentence, what I can do is I can use whether. It is not clear whether the president's cavalcade would cross the street or not. That makes it sound more formal. And if makes it sound informal. So this is more, the difference here is only between the levels of formality. Grammatically, both of them are correct. Because or now separated from the complementizer, it appears as the end. So both whether and if is grammatically correct. The only difference is that the levels of formality is different for usage of whether and if. Whether is more formal, if is less formal. Okay, understand this point. This is also important. You might be asked to judge the formality of the sentence also. Okay, so keep these points in mind. Now look at the 19th one. He sent quickly the file to the office. Now we have now come to look at the that clauses in particular. Okay, the last few sentences are on that. So we'll judge the grammaticality here. And we're also looking at the relationship between that clauses and indirect objects. Okay, in case where you have this particularly, look at that verb send. This is a ditransitive verb, right? What is the ditransitive verb?
Two objects.
Yeah, it takes two objects, namely, it will have a direct object and an indirect object, right? So we look at how the relationship between this indirect object and that clause works, how their positioning and make a sentence grammatical or ungrammatical. Okay. So look at the sentence. He sent quickly the file to the office.
Ungrammatical.
Ungrammatical, right?
Yeah, quickly should be at the end.
Quickly should be at the end, right? Alternatively, quickly can also be before the verb sent. He quickly sent the file to the office is also right. Okay. Or he sent the file to the office quickly is also correct. But definitely he sent quickly the file is a wrong construction. Okay. Now he sent to us his CV.
Ungrammatical.
Ungrammatical. Why?
Sent to us his CV. Like
to us, of course, a wrong construction because in sentences like this, your where you have one clean object here. The direct object here is in the sentence. He sent to us his CV. Direct object. You question the verb sent with what is the answer?
The next line is the answer, maybe like he sent us his CV.
No. My question is, what is your answer? If you question the verb sent with in this sentence, what is the answer that you get?
CV.
CV, his CV. Okay, his CV is the answer. And so that is your direct object, right? And us, then that becomes your indirect object. Now, what happens in sentences like this, where you have, a non-clause object, okay, an object which is not clause, which is not of the nature of a clause, you don't take a preposition before your indirect object. Okay, so that's a wrong usage. However, you will see that in sentences which has an object which is a clause, this is allowed. There it becomes grammatical. However, in this case, he sent to us his CV. To us is a wrong usage because your direct object is not a clause. It's you have a proper direct object there, right? A lexical object there. So it's not a problem. So it becomes a problem to use a preposition for your indirect object, right? So that's the reason. He sent to us his CV is wrong. However, a sentence like he, okay, we'll look at it later. This one is ungrammatical anyway. So we'll take it up later as we move on. Can we use quickly after the file? He sent the file quickly to the office. No, Harshit. That is wrong. Okay. Because see, adverbs, they are structurally a bit fluid. They can appear, say, in the beginning or end of the sentence, and sometimes or in the middle also. So in that way, it is structurally fluid. But when you shift the position of adverbs, they actually make the sentence semantically different, which means the meanings that every time you try and make to people, when you shift the position of the adverb around is different, right? So it is not like if you place quickly anywhere you want. Sometimes the usage is ungrammatical, by which I mean that that particular positioning is wrong. And in other cases where it is structurally right, still in such cases the meanings that it gives as opposed to the other piece is very different, right? So for example, if I say quickly he sent the file to the office, people would not say that it's a wrong construction. It's still an acceptable construction, not ungrammatical per se. It might be ungrammatical, but still be acceptable, right? So what I'm doing here is when I place quickly as the in the beginning, if you have followed that lecture on adverbs, you looked at something like the sentential adverb, right? So what you're doing with the sentential adverb is you are using that one adverb for the entire sentence. Quickly he sent the file to the office. So what you're trying to do is emphasizing on the nature of the verb itself. So the meaning that it sends to the listener, to the native speaker, is different from he sent the file to the office quickly, right? There is a very subtle difference in both the meaning. Right? But your question about whether you can use it after the file, no, that construction is wrong by itself. That kind of construction is not at all allowed. It doesn't mean anything if you put the word quickly. Okay, it's just a wrong placement. Okay, Harshit, I think there's some other thing also. How to define direct and indirect object? Yes, how do you define direct and indirect object? So if you have a ditransitive verb and if your verb answers the question what, the answer to the question what will be your direct object, and or who, what or who, it will answer the direct object. To whom or whom is what will answer your indirect object. Okay. So all you need to focus on is the answer to the question what or who. Okay, even if you do not look at the other part, even if you do not question to who or for who, just focus on one part of it. Take the verb and question it with who or what. Whatever your answer is, that is your direct object, and definitely the other part is your indirect object. Okay, that's how you recognize direct and indirect object in a sentence. All right, now we discussed the 21. Now the 21st one. Yeah, like what he sent, correct. That's how. What did you send? Yeah, his CV, correct. Okay, 21st one. He sent us his CV. This one, is this a correct sentence? Grammatical?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, right. So this is the correct way of doing it. As opposed to the 20th one, the right one would be you have removed the preposition here, and that makes the sentence grammatical. Then does his CV. Okay. What was sent? His CV to us. Right. So you have direct and indirect object here and grammatical construction. 22nd one. He told us that he had an urgent meeting with the client.
I'm
He told us
grammatical.
that, sorry.
Grammatical.
It is grammatical. He told us that he had an urgent meeting with the client. So there's that clause here that he had an urgent meeting with the client, right? And sentence is grammatical. He told us that he had an urgent meeting with the client. So what is the direct object here? He told what? Okay, that part will answer your direct object. That he had an urgent meeting with the client. That is your direct object, and us is your indirect object. Okay. Now, he told to us that he had an urgent meeting with the client. He told us that he had an urgent meeting with the client. Okay, so this is the difference between the sentence he sent to us his CV and he told to us that he had an urgent meeting with the client, right? So if you have a that clause, okay, which means if you have a complex looking object, a clause sort of object in the sentence, then this construction is allowed. This, where preposition precedes your indirect object, this construction is allowed. So this one is grammatical. But he sent to us his CV is ungrammatical, right? That's because the object does not have any clause sort of construction. Why is this so? It's more of, this has got more to do with the semantics than the structure. So when you place a clause element in your object position, you basically are making it very, very, right? So now because you have no choice but to push in English, usually the stylistics tells you, if you had been attending the professional writing classes, I think this was repeatedly told that anything that is more weighty, anything that is more longer, uh, anything that requires more emphasis, everything will have to be shifted towards the end of the sentence, right? So it has its own bearing. It acts like, it has a tendency to act like its own unit, although it is attached to the sentence grammatically. It semantically behaves like an independent unit, taking its own emphasis. In such cases, since there are now many elements involved in this and it's not just one single thing, this particular construction, that is the one with where you have a preposition preceding the indirect object is allowed. Okay, so this sentence, he told us that he had an urgent meeting with the client is grammatical. Okay, but he sent to us his CV is ungrammatical. Okay. 23 is correct because object itself is a sentence. Yeah, basically that. That's what I meant by saying that, it is a clause. Sentence clause means the same. Whether you call it a sentence or a clause, it's one and the same. The sentence is also a clause. Okay, this part also we discussed in the first class. Right. Correct. He told that he had an urgent meeting to attend to. He told
Ungrammatical.
that he had an urgent meeting to attend to us.
This is not grammatical.
This is not grammatical. This is definitely not grammatical, right? Yeah. Because the placement is wrong. Do not know why two us should follow anything. You have now distorted the structure, the way structure of the sentence in English itself. So structurally it's wrong, and hence grammatically also it is wrong. Okay. Structurally wrong basically means grammatically it's wrong. Okay. So you've understood the reason why he sent to us the CV is incorrect, and he told to us that an urgent meeting with the client is grammatical, right? So the difference is that the one has clause as its object, right? So basically, like what somebody was saying, that's a sentence in itself. It's hefty, it is heavy, it can stand on its own. So the first part of it he told to us is then allowed, right? Whereas that's not the case in 20th one. Okay. So this is about the that clause and its grammaticality and usage. This is also important. Please keep this in mind. You will have questions from this part as well. Okay. So we looked at what? We read question clauses and its grammaticality, right? I asked what you wore for the evening, not I asked what did you wear for the evening, or not I asked what did you wear for the evening, right? Indirect questions need to be framed like this. Then we looked at the if and whether clauses, looked at three conditions for it, right? Cannot be used with a non-finite clause, cannot be used when a preposition precedes the clause, cannot be used when you have an or not type construction. But both of them are allowed. The or not is located at the far end of the sentence. The only difference being whether becoming formal and the if usage informal. And then you had the that clause, right? You saw that with the that clause when your clause, when you have a clause basically as the object, the construction with the preposition preceding the indirect object is fine. But otherwise, in the absence of a clause, you cannot use that kind of construction. It's grammatical, right? And quickly, placement of the adverbs either at the end or right before the main verb, but not anywhere else in the sentence. Okay. All right. So that's about those three clauses. Now we'll quickly look finite and infinite clauses. Okay. The major part of the session is over. Now this one is just to alert you towards certain other details. And look at those sentences and tell me which one among them are finite and infinite clauses. Okay. So you have 8 of them. I told you finite clauses are the ones which has a tense, and infinite are the ones which does not have a tense, right? So look at this. I think that this boy is innocent. Finite or infinite? Just look at the clause part. As in the clause, I mean
Finite
this
one.
clause.
Finite.
This is finite, right? Because see, what do you have? This boy is innocent. Is it has a tense, present tense, and so this is finite. I want him to pick up the order. I want him to
Infinite.
pick up the order. Why is it infinite?
And it doesn't have the tense.
So which part is your clause part?
Pick up the order.
Him to pick up the order. Okay.
Oh, yes.
The object of that sentence is him to pick up the order, the end part, right? And that does not have a tense because you have to pick up, which is an infinitive, and it does not have a tense. Okay. I want to go to Dehradun. Object of the
Infinite.
sentence to go to Dehradun, right? Again, is it no? I want to go to Dehradun. What's the
Finite.
object here?
Infinite.
It is infinite again because you have to go, and it does not have a tense here, right? Okay, I wonder where she lives.
Finite.
Finite, right? So where she lives, right? So lives has present tense to it. Could you tell me if he would be here on time? Could you tell me if he would be here on time? What's the clause part here?
If he would be here on time.
If he would be here on time. So is that finite?
Infinite.
Why is it infinite? You have be there, no? He would be here on time. It gives you a sense of present tense. right? Could be here on time. That is finite. Okay, this is the finite clause. Just look for the tense. If you are not able to locate tense in the sentence or the clause, then definitely it's an infinite verb. Okay. Sixth one. I want her to meet with him.
I'm infinite.
Infinite. Okay, similar to the second and the third sentence. I would like her to see what she wrote in the exam. I would like her to see what she wrote in the exam. Now, this has two components. One could be finite and the other could be infinite. You need to pick on which one that is. Right, there is double embedding. This we discussed in one of the sentences before. So, for her to see what she wrote in the exam is your first part, and within that you have she wrote in the exam, right? So, what she wrote in the exam, that is a finite part. Okay, the sentence as a whole is finite, but the clause here, what she wrote in the exam, that is finite because you have the past tense there. But her to see what she wrote in the exam, that particular clause is infinite. Okay, get this tips. So one part has tense and the other doesn't. First part doesn't, her to see. That does not have two C's in finite infinitive, no tense. But what she wrote in the exam, the question clause within that infinite clause, it has a tense, right? This is past tense. Okay. Eighth one, I believe you did not read the whole story.
I'm
I
finite.
believe you, this is finite. Yeah, you did not read the story, you have past tense. This has a tense, it's finite. Okay, all right. Now, identify the subject in the following sentences. Yes, this is also important. It was made clear that the exam would be held in the month June. What's the subject? Subject of the sentence. It was made clear the exam would be held in the month of June. It is the subject of the sentence and it does not have any meaning. Okay, doesn't refer to anything per se. It is a conceptual subject or what we refer to as the grammatical subject in um, linguistics. Okay, so why do we call it a grammatical subject? Because its only duty is to fulfill the position of the subject. Because you cannot have a send English without a subject, so you have to fill that position with something, right? In certain constructions, at least you need to have them, and hence you use what you refer to as a. There are many names to this. Okay. It can be referred to as a dummy subject or empty subject or dull subject or whatever you want to call it. All mean that, or whatever you call them, all of them refer to just one thing, that this doesn't have a meaning by itself. It's just been placed there to fulfill the conceptual space for the subject in the sentence. Because without that, the sentence would be ungrammatical. Right. The board made it clear that students would not be allowed to write the exam without the hall ticket. Subject. The board made it clear that students would not be. Okay, correct. All right. Now the third one, take the cup from him. Take the cup from him. You don't have the. Yes, right. No, not the cup. Okay. The subject here is you, right? This is an imperative sentence. Take the cup from him. Okay. And the implied, so this one does not have an avert subject like you see in the first two, but definitely has an implied subject, and that subject is you. Okay, you take the cup from him. So in all imperative sentences, in all the languages, not just English, in all the languages of the world, the subject in the imperative sentence is you. Okay, whether it is overtly mentioned or not, it is always you. You take the cup from him. So the implied subject here is you. Uh, this is fourth one. That she wrote so much in a less time surprised us. That she wrote so much in a less time surprised us. What's the subject? That she wrote so much in a less time surprised us. No. So this is a sentence that begins with a that clause, right? So that entire part will have to be taken. You cannot extract one thing out of that. If you have a that clause, then the whole part, the whole chunk of it will have to be together. You cannot pick things out, right? You can have, you can do that semantically again, but in grammar, you are not allowed to extract things uh, out of a unit, right? Here, this is a that clause. That she wrote so much in a less time is one full part. It's a part of that whole that clause. So then that entire part that she wrote so much in a less time becomes your subject. Okay? Grammatically. That is, understand this point. Okay, you can talk about the logical subject here. You can say that, no, I have other things to talk about here, and that the logical subject looks like something else. But remember, we are not discussing the logical part of it. We are looking at the grammatical aspect of it. Okay. So since this is a that clause, and you cannot extract elements out of that independently, that whole full chunk becomes your subject. Understand this
From
point?
from that to till less time.
Yes. So look at that. No, even if you look at the structure itself, you have the subject, which is that she wrote so much in a less time, and then you have surprised, which is the main verb of your sentence, and then you have us, which is the object.
Object.
So don't you see the structure? Subject of object. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now the next one. That Mary could dance so well was rather a shock. It's a similar kind of sentence. What's the verb here? The main verb is? Yes, JK. That Mary could dance so well is your subject. Correct. That clause, that Mary could dance so well. And what's the verb here? Was. The verb is was. That's your main verb. And then you have rather a shock as your, basically your shock as your object, and then you have the adverb added to this. Okay. So that Mary could dance so well is your subject. Now the sixth one, the belief that one should not let women study is unacceptable. The belief that one should not let study is unacceptable. What's your subject? Both of them work the same way, the sixth and the seventh one. The belief that one should not let women study is unacceptable. The fact that the climate is rapidly changing is worrying. From the belief to study. Okay. This is a different kind of sentence. Okay. So whenever you have sentences that begin with the belief, the fact, the idea, keep in mind that the subject here is only the belief and the fact. The that clause that you see here, that one should not let women study and that the climate is really changing, it is acting as a modifier to the subject. So remember, relative clause, adjective clause. Yes. What did adjectival clauses do? They were modifying the noun phrases, right? So modifiers cannot be included along with, particularly if they are separated from the noun phrase, then they don't become the part of the subject. So in these two sentences, your subject is the belief and the fact. That clause here is not a part of the subject because here it is a relative clause. It is modifying the subject. So it does not have to come along with it, right? So I take it out, right? The belief is unacceptable. The fact is worrying. Okay, there is some sense of incompleteness to it, but it is grammatically correct. right? Which means it's not an essential part here. Okay, so they are acting as modifiers and they are not part of the subject. Unlike the previous case where that she wrote so much in a line, that Mary could dance so well. They were essential part. You couldn't remove anything from that. If you had removed anything out of that, then the sentence would look ungrammatical. The sentence would not be good. But in the sixth and seventh, I can remove that one should not let women study. I can remove that the climate is rapidly changing and still have a grammatical sentence, right? So, which means in both the cases, they are acting as relative clauses or adjectival clauses, modifying the noun phrase, the belief, and the fact. Basically, object here. Okay. So, in these cases, the subject is only the belief and the fact. Understand? Yeah. Okay. So, these are small but very pertinent differences, and we need to keep them in mind while we are looking at grammar. Okay, so is that understood? All of them, how to identify subjects. Okay, it and yeah, the first two sentences has it, and we looked at the empty subject. We know why we use it in a sentence. You know that it's a grammatical subject, right? And they have the imperative sentence, which across languages everywhere take you as the implied subject, and then you have the that clauses. Two cases of that clause where that clause becomes a subject and the case where that clause does not become the subject. So when that clause is used as a modifier, as in a relative clause or adjectival clause, it is not part of the subject. Okay, clear? All right. Okay, so if you have doubts, you can ask them. Otherwise, it's 1:10. I think we have successfully finished the exercises for today. And if you have doubts, you may say that. Otherwise, we'll meet next week. Yeah, all of them will be made available. Don't worry, very soon. Okay. You can find all of them in the supplementary tabs. Not shared yet, but we'll share it very soon after it is organized and done nicely. Okay. Okay, guys. So thank you for joining in. We'll meet next week.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, I know only that session is available because the others aren't uploaded, right? So I'm saying that would be uploaded soon. Okay, guys. See you next week. Hello. Hello. We'll close the session. Okay. Okay.